congratulations on this another successful project for you for Four Kids and It.
Thank you very much.
So what attracted you to a project like this based off a children's book?
I suppose I've got two grown-up daughters who read all of Jacqueline Wilson's books as they grew up, and so I've always had them around the house. And I think what appealed to this, I like her treatment of the family is very real and honest. She deals with those difficult things of divorce and split families. So I've always enjoyed the work. And it was a combination of that with the opportunity of magic and a bigger palette to tell stories with. And that combination, I think, was very, very attractive for me.
Now, of course, in terms of adaptation from book to screen, there's going to be a lot of changes. And I think there's a lot of changes for this film too, isn't there? Yes.
Well, there are a few things. Sorry, I've just turned my phone off so it doesn't make any noise. Yes, there are a few changes in this. It wasn't at a beach. It was set in a woods initially. And we didn't have a protagonist, the Russell Brand character, Tristan. But having said that, Jacqueline was very open to how we adapted and how we made it work for a cinema film. The mother wasn't American in the book either. So they were already a couple. So we wanted to really pull out the idea of putting a family together, which a lot of children go through now, accepting a new parent and deal with those issues really. And then it's got a great framework that's very funny and there's lots of magic and special effects through that to sort of take you on a journey. But essentially it's about exploring that family unity.
Were the changes made just as a matter of convenience, trying to adapt a film, or it was just to create a better story?
I think just to give a bigger scope to the story itself. The book, I think by Jacqueline's admission, is not episodic, but it's a smaller story, an intimate family story about new parents. And I think, although that would be great in the film, I think that once you've got the magic into that and the aspirational wishes of children, they're not going to be small scale things. They are going to be, I want to be a pop star, I want to fly, I want to be rich, these sort of things. So I think the nature of that opens it up. Once we let that run, so you build a bigger and bigger story, but that was, I think, the fun of it really. And I think Jacqueline sort of gave us our blessing, just have fun with it really. She knew we wanted to keep the same story at the heart. It was about accepting new parents and putting this family together. So the journey that made that story more fun for children to watch, she was very happy.
I was delighted the fact that you made it into an American family and a British family, trying to merge the two together. But doesn't that make casting a little bit harder?
I don't know. It's a pretty global world now. And a lot of Americans have representation in England and vice versa in London. So no, I think we thought that opened it up really. And then we found Ashley and Paula, and they both loved it and we loved them. So yes, I think I'm trying to remember where the American idea came from. I think it was just making a difference in the families, so you could see them coming together and get overcoming their differences.
Now you mentioned that it was a beach setting instead of a forest setting, which I also found that was a little bit more difficult, especially moving equipment along or dealing with weather. Why that decision?
That may have been not a good decision. It came from, well, we're so sunset based. So it's nice if you're at the coast, you get a clear sunset and sunrise. And I think because it involved sand, this felt a more natural thing. And to have a hidden beach setting gave us a magic spot. And I'd done a film a couple of years before about smugglers. And so I remember finding this little beach and you could only access it through a tunnel. So it immediately came to mind for this story. And then with Simon, the idea of making it a holiday, so you go to a holiday house by the sea, it all sort of came together with that thought, really.
Was the mansion and the cottage near that beach too, or was that a completely separate location?
The cottage and the beach are quite close, a couple of miles apart, but it's the same sort of coastline. You could walk it. The mansion itself was back in Dublin. So we had to play around because we got to do a lot to the mansion as well. It was very hard to do that out by the coast, and we couldn't find anything there. So finding an old, slightly shambolic mansion was quite a tricky task, but we found somewhere just outside Dublin and used the two.
Well, of course, we're going to have to talk about the Samid itself. Talk about the design of the creature. I mean, from my understanding, it looks a lot different from what people could imagine from the children's book.
Yes, yes. In the original book, the creature is a bit more scaly and unpleasant, and its eyes are on stalks. But working with the creature designer, Brian, we struggled a bit with the eyes on stalks. They're really hard to focus, to look at anything, and they tend to go all over the shop, which didn't help you to connect or empathize with the creature. So we pulled the eyes back into the head. And at the same point, we got the casting with Michael Caine. So we were using a new technique where we were filming his face and hands and upper body for all of the performance. And we were able to translate lots of movements around the eyes and mouth directly into the creature. So we gave him eyes that were quite similar to Michael's as well. And so the design was organic. And then we got to playing around with the sand and the hair and the sand and the inflation. So it all sort of built together. And I think Brian did a tremendous job creating a character that was grumpy and a bit petulant and everything else, but we still loved it. And the kids loved it. Even on set, and they were working with, at times, a stunt Samiad, and at times a animatronic, and times a puppet. But they really, because they were always hearing Michael's voice, they really connected to it. And I think something about the voice and the face meant that when we put them together, and because it had some of his face, it really gelled. So it was an organic process, really, and we came to the creature. And then there was a moment, I remember when we saw a picture and everyone sort of agreed, yeah, that's it, that's what we want.
So during the film production itself, you used what, a mocap person, or you mentioned a little bit of animatronic?
Well, we did have everything, actually, because it's so many different environments that we go with the creature. So we had a puppet at times, and like little Ellie Mays was only 5 when we were filming. So it's great for her to have something to really look at that's talking to her. And she really engaged with it like that. Then we had a robot version that could move around for certain things. We had a stunt one that got pulled and pushed and thrown and so on. We even had a couple of cutouts at certain stages. And it was really to get through the technique of the filmmaking to make everything tie together and feel that the kids were really holding him and touching him. I was very keen that you felt that connection. So there are a series of stand-ins in different forms.
Now, I don't see Michael Caine in too many things, so it must have been very rewarding to get him to voice the Samid.
I think he claims to be in retirement, but I think things keep pulling him back. And he read this and he said it just really made him laugh. And he's got grandkids and he'd love to do something they could see. And he was a joy to work with. He came in we filmed that for quite a few days, and he really got involved in it. It was interesting doing this all before you got to filming with the kids, but he really committed, and we had great moments of really touching just in a studio with him on his own. So he was a joy, and he really gave it a life that, we could have missed.
One of the things that I'm actually fascinated is because you use so much different type of CGs effects throughout the entire filming process, not only with the creature itself, but you also had to do flights, you have to do like a concert and all this kind of stuff. Have you ever been through this much ordeal for computer graphics before?
It's quite dense on this. I've done mostly these elements in little pieces here, and done creatures and done odd things, but this was everything all together. And I suppose it's an interesting time in filmmaking terms. With drones and flying, you can do so much more now. And we didn't fly the children with wires. We flew them on a robot arm that could take them in any direction. So a lot of things have moved forward, which allowed us to do a lot for what was a relatively modest budget. And I suppose that was part of the challenge. We had quite a long time. We almost filmed the year before. And actually the fact that we waited for the next year and the weather was great and we got everything sorted, a few things moved on that allowed us to do that a little better. We were still digging around in the sand, trying to get things to go into sand. But that aside, the real effects, I think we employed a lot of new techniques, which worked very well.
So which effects proved to be the most difficult for you?
Oh, the most difficult for me, I think I think the sand, moving sand. And I've got a concept in my head that the sand would become liquid when the Samiad wanted it to be liquid, but it could be solid when not. So once you've got a head around that, and that again, it's a new particle technique in CGI that allows particles to interact. So you can choose how fluid the sand is, how stiff, and the effects are quite incredible when you run those programs. So we were cutting new ground with that, as well as, we were dragging footballs under the sand and other things as well, just to reference how sand moved and that sort of thing. There's apparently round sand and square sand, which I never knew, move in different ways. So yes, the sand I think was the hardest, because he got to live in it and got to be part of him. So being able to swim and that sort of thing in it, which weren't scripted things. We just wanted him to be at one with the sand, so we were playing around with that. But the sand was a good challenge, yeah.
Well, I'm impressed. I thought that you actually had something underneath the sand that actually flew. So that's great.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Now, according to your filmography, you do a lot of television shows. In fact, when I was watching this, I thought this was a children's television show at first. Could you talk about bringing that style into a feature film?
I suppose I think television is such an ascendancy at the moment, and I would think of myself as a sort of performance director within television. I've just finished another family piece here called The Nest, which I think is coming to the States soon on Acorn. So I like those interactions between characters and those emotional truths. And I think that's what this family, and I think the original book is very contained in that family world. So, but I think the lines between TV and film are blurring now, really. And I think, although that was a domestic story, which is arguably a television story, I think the magic takes it out of that and gives the scope and breadth to make it a cinema film, or a bigger feature film. But I think now we're getting some of the better writing and better moments in TV, certainly than we've ever had. It's a golden era at the moment.
Excellent. One of the things that there's always that old saying, never work with children and animals, and you actually worked with children. Talk about that experience and how you pulled it off.
It was an interesting challenge. We didn't go for very stage school style kids. It was a lot of street casting and school casting. And I suppose different techniques in different ways. The hardest thing is they became bonded very, very quickly. All four of them were really tight friends. And at times they got to play not being friends. And you find, they'd just be leaning and holding each other. But no, you don't like her at the moment. We're going to have to separate. But so the two 12-year-olds, were both incredibly bright and talented. So for them, it's just a bit of steering to keep it in the right zone and real for the story. The 5-year-old's a different thing again, and different days, different feelings. And I mean, she's an incredible child, and she could really be in a scene and watch what's going on, take part in it and have lines, not that sort of waiting to say her line. She was really engaged, and Billy is just a ball of energy, and we used that where we could as well. But they were great. So different techniques and different ways, and then I kept a lot of sweets and bribes in my pockets as well.
Excellent. Any chance for a sequel?
I'd love. I sincerely hope so. Yes, I think there's a lot of mileage in the Samiad, and I love a lot of those characters. So I sincerely hope so. I think Jacqueline's one of our most prolific writers, so let's hope. Yeah.
Excellent. And let me start wrapping it up. Do you have future? I know it's an obligatory question to ask, especially at times like this, but do you have future projects for yourself?
Yes, we're just starting actually lead up to a TV puppet satire show called Spitting Image, which happened about 25 years ago, and now we're doing a English-American co-production with a lot of American celebrities and politicians and English celebrities and world figures, really. And that starts going out in September.
Excellent. One last quick question. Usually authors don't like to do cameos in their own movies, or sometimes they are very happy to. How did you convince Jacqueline Wilson to do her cameo?
Actually, it took a little bit of persuasion, and more because she's quite shy and modest. But I think she liked the setting of a book signing, which she does a lot. And it has to be said, on that day she came and played the Cameo, she spent about 3 or 4 hours signing books for kids. We had a queue longer than the queue in the shot of kids wanting to get signed by her. So she was she's a real team player. She was involved in a lot through the project. Loved what we'd done with the script, always gave us some good notes and was very positive. So a little bit of persuading, but only because she was shy.
Excellent. Hey, congratulations, Andy. Looking forward to this again, and good luck on this project.
Great. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.